Hey, welcome back to another episode of the AI Marketing Stacks podcast. And today I'm here with the AI evangelist, Mr. Arvell Craig, who has a really interesting story and very multifaceted expertise. Arvell has a background in everything from divinity to all the way to having a chatbot company to doing high ticket closing. And I really feel like just in our conversation before we hit record, it gives him a really multifaceted view. He's someone who's been in marketing for 20 years, someone who's had engineering background, had a chatbot company in 2018, now works with the agents, which we'll talk a little bit more about what they do, but also has the marketing chops. Like he does speaking on stage, he does high ticket closing. He's written several books about relationship and partnership, especially in marketing. So I'm really excited to have Arvell with us today. And welcome, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited to have this conversation. It's awesome.
So first question I always like to ask is, what are you working on right now that has you the most excited, the most energized?
The thing I'm working on right now is, I guess there's two things. One thing is just applying AI, or kind of really coming out with a process to diagnose my personal or any business constraint, bottleneck, problem, how to diagnose a problem first, and then add AI to make the biggest breakthrough result from that. As compared to my other side of me, I just like playing with AI. I've been playing with it since the past year. But so many of us play with it, but we don't get big results. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to kind of shift that paradigm to really break down the problem first. And then more specifically, I'm working on creating my own custom GPT to take my own copywriting style and have a process to recreate emails and social posts directly in a framework that I use for writing. So I really want to turn that into a customized process using the custom GPTs. Those are my two things.
Yeah. Amazing. How is that going with the custom GPTs?
I mean, last week, I guess it came out. I was playing with it. I haven't played with it the past couple of days, but I seen this one guy who created a mashup of two movies. I'm in a couple different AI Slack groups, but he created named your favorite two movies, and it was a step-by-step process to bring those two movies together with the plot, the theme, and it would interviews in DALL-E 3 with an image. So it was so I saw that step. So I haven't finished it up, but the big key was taking your own process and making it to a PDF file or Google Doc to create 5 steps in a Google Doc, and then uploading that Google Doc into ChatGPT custom and tell it go step by step. So it's if you can figure out that framework with the PDF, and then if you I don't know if you've played around with it, if you can do that, then you can make more of an ongoing kind of a workflow. And you tell ChatGPT, do the first step first, wait for my answer before proceeding to the next step. And that's the simple instruction, the prompt there. But if you can put those two things together, I think it can work really well. I'm not a real process person. I'm very creative, I do a lot of different things. So I don't do the same thing every day. So my personal bottleneck is, how do I take what I do intuitively and turn that into a step-by-step process? Once I figure that out, then I can throw that into ChatGPT and create more workflows and delegate somebody else to, here's a different thing. Okay, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, take Black Friday as a theme, take my personal story with my wife or daughter, mash those two things together and create this email that leads people to sign up for one of my courses. Anyway, so that's the dream. That's what I want to create, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's something I'm working on as well. And you said something before we started the call, and you hit on it here, which is that I think when people see what AI is capable of, all right, blending 2 movies together, right, or creating a whole movie trailer, or it has all these wild results that people see, and we see how powerful the tool is. But still, a lot of people, I think, are struggling to use that tool to do what you just said, which is create breakthrough results in their life, in their business. So tell me how you think about what that constraint is. From here's this tool that's so powerful, what's blocking people from getting the most out of that tool to create extremely extraordinary, powerful results in what they're trying to create in their life?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've been listening to, so a couple of months ago, I read a book called Well, the theory is the theory of constraints. There's a book called The Goal, written in the 80s. And this guy wrote this business novel in illustrating a production system, a manufacturing system, and how you figure out bottlenecks and get breakthrough results. And this guy's written many other books since. His name is Ellie Goldratt. But I've been reading his books over and over again. And so there's these traditional philosophies that's from the 80s, maybe lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, all these corporate known processes to help people increase workflow, remove bottlenecks, lean. And again, I don't have a corporate background. I didn't go to college or high school or anything. I didn't study business. I've only read business books. I've been kind of an entrepreneur consultant for years. So I have none of that traditional stuff. So what I'm learning, I think, is probably old school concepts. But the basic thing I'm learning is, it's like looking how to figure out your process, how to remove as many steps as possible. And then even realizing that like the 80-20 rule is like, there's 80-20 within 80-20. So all that to say is I'm using these traditional manufacturing process improvement systems, lean manufacturing, value stream mapping, just basic concepts that I'm using to figure out like, where is really looking at, where's my biggest bottleneck? And then from identifying there, figuring out, is there a way I can add AI or add a person to remove it? It's like, I give you an example. One of the things I'm doing, I mentioned the sales closing I'm doing, and the mentor I have, I realize I don't need a list to make sales. I don't need a product to make sales. So right now, my side hustle for making money is finding other people's product, other people's list. And so as a copywriter, I'm just going in and using what they already have. So the process is a lot streamlined. I don't have anything, if that makes sense. I don't need a product. I don't need a list. I don't need an offer. Let me just find somebody else's and talk to their old lists, their old leads they haven't talked to, and make sales. All that to say is, you can and I feel like maybe I may have to edit this, but if that makes sense, you can remove
100%.
steps in the process if you figure out where you're stuck at. Because to me, I don't have a product right now. I'm selling other people's products. So it's really just mapping out your system or process and removing what's not necessary. And then again, if there's a way AI can make it faster or more streamlined, then add it at the end versus at the beginning. So
no, it does. And one thing that we had also talked about before was when you're like, there's really no difference between putting AI into your workflow or putting a person in your workflow, or, really you could probably say like putting money, like paying someone else. So all these different forms of leverage, like capital, technology, there's really no difference in the human psychology side of making decisions about like where you're going to put this type of leverage, where you're going to put a person or a workflow or a system in place. And so really, one of our former guests, Steve Raji, said something, which is that human imagination is actually the limiter on a lot of what these AI tools can do. These AI tools already, without any more evolution, are so extraordinarily powerful that it's like a lot of times our imagination, or also probably our ego, that can kind of block being able to put these into the workflow.
That's true. No, that is fascinating. And you may need somebody else. I think eventually, because I'm speaking about AI all day long, and I talk to entrepreneurs and I talk to corporate companies and enterprises. I think eventually, you may need an external person. It's like coaching. I don't know if you ever had a coach who helped you, whether it's professionally, relationally, business-wise. Sometimes we need somebody on the outside to help us see the opportunities. And so I'm hoping that with the more experience I have and the different people I talk to, I can maybe be a voice to help people, help highlight, because I don't think, we don't see our blind spots. We don't see that there's an opportunity that we're missing. So we may need a third party to kind of give us that perspective,
100%.
Yeah.
You said you wrote 3 books, am I right? In the last couple of months, in the last couple of months, using like a hybrid AI human process, taking your notes. Can you walk me through a little bit of I think for a lot of people, that's something they would love to do. How did you do that? What was your process?
Yeah, definitely. So I went to I bought a course again back in February or March. There's this company called Ad Skills, and they teach like media buyers and things like that. I've been in that group for like 5 years, and they had a course teaching how to write a book with AI. And I just got laid off from my last job. And so I was like, I need to make money. I went to one of my old clients, like, hey, there's this course on how to use AI to write a book. I think you want a book. So if you pay for it, I'll go to it and I'll write you a book. And he's like, yeah. So he said yes. He decided to pay. It was a 7-hour long workshop. And they taught one of the big issues people have with trying to use AI. You think Claude has more words, so you can do more stuff with Claude versus ChatGPT. And there's all these kind of distinctions. But the key is, again, when I went to this workshop, they had a process. And it was like, just use ChatGPT to create, like, you have your title or your topics, just create chapters. Okay. And then go back and take a chapter and have AI write just one chapter. And then do the second chapter. You can say, all right, write a chapter on this topic, end it with 3 points or 3 takeaways, or go back into it and give me some examples or stories. But it's a step-by-step process where you got one chapter done. Great. Now you do the second chapter. So you go step by step through the whole 5, 6, 7 chapters. We were like a lead magnet book. So within 2 hours, I had this client's book all done. And then we went through making sales copy, video sales letter, ads. I was like, I want to write my own book. So while I was in a workshop, I went in and came up with my own idea. I've been really big into partnerships lately. And how do I leverage people and their brain versus being smart all the time? So I wrote a book on realizing one of my constraints is I procrastinate and I perfect and I go too slow because I'm not partnering, because I'm thinking I try to learn, it's like the who, not how book. You don't need to learn how, I need to find a who. So I wrote a book on that concept and using that same process. Here's the topic, ask AI, give me the 5 chapters, and then write the first chapter, and then write the second chapter, and eventually. But I also went through my email list and I looked through the past 2 years, all the emails that I wrote that talked about partnerships. So I talked about who, not how. I forgot Dan Sullivan's book. I talked about Travis Sago's philosophy on producer. You be the producer and get things done versus having to do everything. I went through other clients but I used my own story. So I had one chapter from ChatGPT, then I had an old email repurposed. A chapter from ChatGPT, then an old story, then my own email repurpose. And so I had 10 chapters done for myself. And then I had the client book done. And then I sold it to somebody else. I put it on Facebook and somebody said, hey, can you write me a book? I put this thing, I asked ChatGPT, write 20,000 words, and it can do it. I was like, no, it's a step-by-step process. So that ended up being like, his book was like 20,000 words because he wanted a really long book. So it took me back and forth over and over and over again. But again, each book took maybe 5 hours, just put in context, maybe 4 hours to get done, if that long. So it really wasn't too hard. Again, you just go to Canva, put a photo in there. It was so super easy to get done. So
I love it. You have the book too, right? Don't you?
Yeah. Yep.
I love it. Stop procrastinating and start partnering. That's actually really relevant, like almost eerily relevant for my mind space right now and thinking about the work that I'm doing. What are some of the high level concepts or things you learned writing that book or in your own life about the importance of partnerships, the mistakes people make when they avoid partnerships and they try to do it all themselves, right? They try to learn all the how without going after the who. What are some of the lessons or concepts or insights that you have around that? Because I feel like that's extremely important, whether you're using people or partnering with an AI tool. It's pretty similar.
No, it's fast. I mean, I think one of the biggest things is that when we understand our natural gifts or talents, what you're really good at, it's like, if you can figure out what you're really good at, it's enough to move the needle. You actually enjoy the work you're doing. And you actually love, you'll be emotionally, mentally, you really enjoy being in the pocket versus doing something that you're okay at, but you feel like you have to do it. So it's a habit of doing too much, and you kind of settle on, I'm great at this, but I have to do this. So that's, in general, it just makes life more fun to trust that your God-given nature, your gifts, your talents are good enough to make a bunch of money and to make you more happy. I think that's just a key. What you're really good at, if you stick with it, it's enough to make you the money that you want to make, and you don't have to settle. You don't have to settle by doing things you hate just to. And the other thing with partnering, I think that's important. I think it's like looking at the long haul, not just looking for short-term benefits. I think one of the things that helped me out, because when I first started hiring people, probably 2010, I switched from making Joomla websites to WordPress, and I didn't know how to code in WordPress. So I went to Upwork or Odesk or whatever, started hiring people. And I think the mistake there is that if you're thinking short term, you're thinking you want to maximize your profit. And so you hire the cheapest person you can. You think I can't afford it. I'm used to making 100, couple $100 an hour. You hire people too cheap, and it takes a lot of oversight. It takes management, and you're thinking short term. But if you can think long term and you can partner, you can, even if you make 10, 20% profit over years versus 80% profit over short term, that is another concept that I think can help people to, again, trust yourself, partner with people who are really smart and they can do stuff for long term. Even if you make less money, that over time will compound versus, again, hiring people cheap, getting low quality, thinking short term. That's another kind of concept that's been like my biggest mistake, was thinking short term, cheap versus make less money over. I rather make, $1 a day, make that compound over 10 years. You make millions versus making $10,000 right now, and then it's gone in 6 months.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, 100%. You also you had a chatbot company,
Yeah.
that you founded, and this was back in 2018, right? So this is well before, like, it seems like another another age, right? Well before the days of ChatGPT. So you've been in this technology and you've been working with this technology, or at least like with the flow, with chatbots and creating automations for a while now. What were you looking at during that time, or what were you seeing that made you think, okay, here's an amazing opportunity for me to go into, for others to use? What was going through your mind around that time?
Yeah, so it's probably in 2016, I was at an Inbound, which is HubSpot's 10,000 people marketing conference, 15,000 people, I don't know how many, in Boston. I was speaking at there, and one of their founders talked about chatbots. And I think around that time, Facebook Messenger opened up for businesses, right? Messenger was just a consumer thing, and you had your Facebook ads. But when Messenger opened up for businesses, and I was big into email marketing, marketing automation, big into soap opera sequences and Andre Chaperone. And I was in that world just playing around and doing automations. And it was the story around the marketing community was like Messenger bots and chat bots was like email marketing 2.0. Like, oh, wow, really? And so the story was, with chatbots and Messenger, you could get 80% open rates and 50% click-through rates versus email. So that was the comparison. It was compared to email. And then, of course, when it first came out, it wasn't regulated. It wasn't that strict. So those numbers were realistic. So I learned Chat Fuel and ManyChat and all those things back then. And I created a course, how to build chatbots.com, created chatbot funnels because I was in the ClickFunnels world. So I just did it. And I was like, and then I added the speaking. So I was just teaching, preaching chatbots, and then WhatsApp or SMS, and SMS wasn't as regulated. It wasn't as hard back then. So all these different channels were just, to me, it was email marketing 2.0. It was a way to just write simple. And I've always liked email. I always liked direct response, where I could do something, get a response, versus social, where you and you don't know if people are interacting or clicking, and it's just data. So that was the opportunity that I felt, and the data that showed that more people messaged one-on-one. Snapchat, WhatsApp, Messenger was more popular than people spending time on feeds. So again, all that data showed that chatbots was how people communicate, and if a business could tap into that stream, it's kind of almost, not saying guaranteed, but you definitely could get 2 or 3 times X what you were doing in email. So that was kind of why I got into it.
What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen when people try to use like chat funnels, or put in chatbots, or use like Messenger, like automated sequences and messengers or whatever? What are some of those big mistakes that people make when they try to incorporate that into their funnels, into their flows?
Yeah, I mean, right now it varies. I think the biggest thing I learned, and I was mainly doing B2B when I really started focusing on HubSpot and Drift. I became a partner with Drift, reselling it. So it's always B2B, but in the context of B2B, the goal was to talk to people at the bottom of the funnel, the mistakes was like the chatbot trying to be a fake person wouldn't work because you can't answer all those questions. Number two, not bringing value as fast as possible, like a lead magnet, like value, like, you know, something like, hey, would you like 20% off, which works now, you know, even pop-up ads and e-commerce, you got, give me your email now for 20% off. So something that was immediate of value was important. Not trying to be a fake person was important. Understanding that they're at the bottom of the funnel, and with the bottom of the funnel, because it was B2B, the goal was to qualify them as soon as possible. So if I could qualify them first, whether their job title, whether they're looking for, you know, but again, it's like, it's think about the lead or like something that you're going to say to get people to raise their hand that, you know, is a clear hook that distinguishes, are they at a buying decision or not? Putting that in the message as soon as possible, and then triggering a live person to jump on to finish the conversation. Anyway, but those are some of the basic things that would those are the main principles that would help people distinguish whether or not the chat would get high conversions. Even putting on thank you pages, putting on, you know, on again, bottom of the funnel things when they're at the point of decision, on checkout pages, all things like that. Because if they really want to make a decision, they're more likely to engage with a chat system versus, you know, if they just hit the home page,
Right.
You know, that may or may not work, you know.
100%. And just based on our conversation, you strike me as someone who's a lifelong learner. You've already mentioned mentioned many different people who you've learned from and studied from and pulled from and put those resources together. So how do you continue to stay up to date with what's going on in the world of marketing and now what's going on in the world of AI?
Yeah, with that, and honestly, I think I definitely try to, this is one of my big principles. I'm really trying to narrow what I listen to, because I think one of the things we didn't really talk about, but I think the human brain, because information is growing, right? There's a lot of information, there's notifications, there's distractions. And with AI, there's even more content, there's even more noise. I think that trajectory of content and noise is skyrocketing. So there has to be a skill that has to be developed in exercise to reduce the noise and filter, and that's kind of what I do. So I'm in like 2 or 3 communities as far as for AI. I mean, one is the AI marketer group that you have. There's also the AI Exchange and Marketing AI Institute. So those Slack groups or communities are only places I go to for AI knowledge. And you know, one is paid, the other ones are free. So I'm just really trying to siphon what I do. And then when it comes to marketing, I've only got one marketing community that I learned from. So really, my goal is to reduce. My goal is to turn down the noise, go to trusted resources. And because again, the goal is not just to learn, the goal is to apply it.
Yes.
And so again, my natural bent is to learn and to read and to get in every AI newsletter and get overwhelmed. And I've learned for myself, again, that's a bottleneck. That slows me down. Again, and so therefore, the goal is just to pick 2 or 3 that you trust, that are more involved in everything more than I am, and let them do the first layer of what to do. So everything I'm learning AI, I let those people learn it the day it comes out, and maybe 5 days later, I'll jump on it, you know, versus me trying to be a super early adopter within 24 hours of everything that's new and playing around and signing up for everything. Yeah, it's too much.
That's powerful. And, you know, you mentioned something earlier too, which hits on something I've been thinking about a lot. You talked about taking these old school business concepts, looking at like bottlenecks, looking at constraints, like these are theories that have been around for decades, right? Yeah. And probably typically in other like market verticals, right, than just typical digital marketing. And, you know, one thing I've been playing around with, and I actually kind of got this from Perry Marshall, because I've been studying and looking at some of what he's talking about, and he talks a lot about finding the edge. And I found this concept really powerful, which is when you go into an LLM like a ChatGPT or a Claude, and you ask really powerful questions, and specifically questions that combine that find the edges of human knowledge. And the way that you do that is by taking something like you know, let's say taking a school of thought like evolutionary biology, for instance, and then combining it with like a maybe a manufacturing philosophy, right, from the 80s, and putting them together to find, all right, like, what is the limit of human knowledge, and where is there a gap, right, between these intersecting theories? And this is something that I think like ChatGPT does a phenomenal job at. And the better you get at asking questions that nobody has asked before, questions that like where you're pulling from these almost like siloed schools of thought, right? Like, you know, Silicon Valley has its own school of marketing, growth marketing, and hacks, and you know, the direct response world has a lot of its own sort of stuff, and then there's a whole field of decision-making psychology, and we live in a world of specialization where a lot of times those don't talk to each other. But now with a few clickety clack, you put a question in, now you can get those schools of thought to talk to each other. And I find that the results are really, really interesting. So I don't know, it's just a concept I've been playing around with, and you brought it up when you're talking about like, oh, I'm taking these old school like principles and I'm applying it to how people use AI in the future, or you know, in their workflows and finding bottlenecks. I just think it's a really powerful mental model to use.
Yeah. And I'll give you one thing that you may already do this, but one thing I learned a few weeks ago that was pretty fascinating, which is nothing new. I mean, the plugins in ChatGPT have been out for a while, but I saw this one thing on Twitter where this guy just asked Twitter or asked ChatGPT, hey, go research the internet on this concept, but teach me the concept in like a mind map. Like, really, that's pretty cool. So I saw him doing that, and I was like, there's something, because I'm very visual. Like when I want to take some ideas and really process it, I write it, but I also like visually processing things. So one thing I've been doing that's been helpful that can relate to what you're saying, and I haven't yet found it perfect, but I've taken like coaching calls. One of my coaches, like my coach helped me with some things, and he'll notice patterns. I mentioned before, like having people on the outside can help you see connections and see things that you don't see. So I took one of those coaching calls, I uploaded it. Well, I think I transcribed it into a PDF or to words. Then I uploaded it in ChatGPT, and I said, take this transcript, only look the parts where I'm answering, and create a visual mind map of the themes that we talked about. And there's a plugin for a mind mapping software, and it created a visual of that call. It's like, and I was like, okay. And I asked ChatGPT to update it and add quotes of things that I said, and it created this beautiful visual of those things that really tie things together. So with what you were saying, if you added a mind mapping tool or whatever, but just possible, I would love to, like, that's what I want to, like, it's cool, give me ideas, but can you make a visual how things connect, how things attach?
That's amazing.
And I think,
I'm gonna try that helpful. as soon as we get off this. Like, I can't wait. I'm gonna try the mind mapping. Yeah, because it's just so powerful. It's like, somebody said, I don't know how, this is totally hearsay, but somebody said they looked at, like, they measured the IQ of ChatGPT, and it's an IQ of like 150, right? And there's a lot that will go into whether or not that's actually a valid, right? But let's just use that as a heuristic that, ChatGPT is like having a friend who has a 150 IQ, which is like, Einstein level, and you're able to have these conversations with it. Any ideas or theories or philosophies, like, I'll put things in there and be like, does this make sense? And then I'll say, I actually have a prompt that I've been creating. Hold on, let me see if I can find it, because it might be interesting. If there's any nerds on here, it might be interesting. Let's see if I can find it real fast. It's what I call the AI prompt for nerds. So I'll tell it, like, you're a scientist with a deep understanding of whatever I want. And then I said, I want you to thoroughly analyze, break down, and evaluate the following concept. And then I just give it a bunch of rough ideas. And then I say, how can we collapse or combine elements in this idea? How can we take a first principles approach to make this more universally applicable? Look at it through a lens of cognitive science or biology or any of the other like hard sciences. What variables am I missing? And then now take an argumentative stance and tell me what's missing from this. Why is it inaccurate? Why is it only partly accurate? And I'll have it criticize my ideas and be like, well, here's where you're missing this, and here's where you're missing this, and this is not clear, and here's how you can make this simpler. And I found that like really, really powerful for coming up with new mental models for thinking about anything. But if you combine that with the with the mind map, that's it.
Yeah.
We're golden.
Interesting.
Yeah. I want to move the conversation a little bit to a more, since we're getting to the more esoteric
Sure.
concepts, which is you have a master's in divinity, right? And so you're a man of faith. You have your faith background, and I've talked to a few people from different belief systems, and I've heard their perspectives on AI. So, what do you think as a man of faith? How do you combine that with AI, with the future, with the way that you see things going? What's kind of your take on that?
Interesting. In one sense, AI is just a tool, right? It's just a really powerful, really smart tool that can serve whatever purpose that you want it to serve. And as long as I've been an adult, I've always tried to make a lot of money and help people. Right. Those are my two. It has been a struggle sometimes, trying to make a lot of money and help people. And so AI is a tool that I'm like, how can I use it for both? How can I use AI to help me make money for my family, for my whatever? And then the ways I try to help people, because I went to seminary, I was a pastor, last year I had a coaching group. I love helping people. I love teaching. That's why I speak. But again, how do I use AI? I tried to create, I don't know, I told you before, I created an accountability chatbot 4 years ago, to help people focus. So AI is a tool that serves me and my mission to serve people. I believe, and I believe that, my goal in life, my purpose in life is to kind of manage those two things, success and fulfillment, money and meaning. They don't have to be the opposite. They don't have to fight one another. So in one sense, it's just a tool. And that's kind of what I'm, and the thing is, it's a tool that's so powerful that all the excuses people have, if you feel like you're not smart, if you think intelligence is the key, you mentioned the IQ, then now you've got a partner for either free or $20 a month. You have access to infinite knowledge. So I love it how it can remove all your excuses. In the sense that if you're at a place where you want to change, if you want to grow, if you want to feel better, whatever your excuse is of why your life isn't going the way you want it to go, I am just excited that we have access to this tool that can help you. You can use it, so that's in general, that's kind of the way I would preface it. The only other thing about AI, which if you look, I was just on an ethics AI Zoom call before we started this conversation, where I was just watching, and it's super smart people talking about the future and sentient and Terminator and all the scary stuff with AI. I as a man of faith, as a Christian, as a person who just believes in, I don't know. I do worry about the future, and my hope is that if there's anything scary about the future, if there's anything threatening, whether it's just your job or whatever you think about, or the worst case scenario, I hope to encourage people to have a sense of their purpose, their identity that surpasses or goes beyond their skills. I think Bill Gates had a quote, I don't know if you saw this last week. He put about if the future, if AI is so powerful, when people don't need to go to school and they don't need to work, and it can threaten what people feel like is their sense of identity. Yeah. And so again, being a man of faith, I hope that I can encourage, if that ever happens, and hopefully it doesn't, but if there is anything negative about the future, that I can help people to have a sense of purpose, have a sense of dignity, have a sense of value, have a sense of hope and faith, irregardless of the chaos that's in the world. Can you find an internal sense of peace to weather or to endure whatever is going to happen in the future?
I think that that's brilliant, because I think that I do see, as the trajectory of the way things are moving, right? Like automating new tasks, making new decisions. Like I like to focus on the here and now. Yeah. So what is actually working right now with the tools available to us, but then also have an eye to, where are we going in the future? What things are still going to be valuable, and what will life look like? And AI is such a powerful technology. It will change a lot of those things. Yeah. And I really would encourage people, and this is sort of where my mindset is the sooner that you start to do internal work, and the sooner you start to look at your own worth as a human and as a being that's separate from what you do, separate
Yeah.
from that, you're gonna, people are gonna, if you have to just decouple those because you're forced to, you're gonna have a rude awakening, right? But if you can start to do the work to say, I have value and worth and find joy and have an identity that's outside of what I do, outside of what I create, outside of how smart I am, and you start to do some of that work, I feel like you're going to be setting yourself up for a lot more success in the future, and not even just success, more freedom, more happiness, more joy, because you're detached from feeling like you're going to lose a lot. You're going to lose your whole sense of purpose and meaning. I think those are really important, powerful questions. And I think the more that we have people like yourself who can help be an encouraging voice and help people to kind of get themselves ready for our lives and where things are going, I feel like that's of immense value to people.
Yeah.
And then, last couple of questions I'm also curious about, because we brought it up before, and you're wearing the shirt. VA agents or V agents, who you partner with. Tell me a little bit more about them and what your role is with them and what they're working on.
No, thank you. Yeah, so V Agents is a conversational AI agent. So agent is like AI plus automation. It's AI that does stuff. I'd say that's what an agent is. And so V Agents is like it's a voice or conversational AI that makes phone calls. And typically the initial use case is that it'll make outbound calls or texts, talk to people to qualify them, pre-qualify them, and then kind of for warm transfers. So we are a solution for call centers, and we're building out capabilities for customer service. So typically you could take your knowledge base, your basic trainings, your SOPs, and train the agent so they can respond just like a normal person. Because a normal agent will talk to people on the phone, but they have a whole knowledge base on the side. They don't know everything, but you talk to them, they look up the information, look up the account information, look up the resource, and they provide the person that answer, stuff like that. So that is what our AI does. So the agency, we're a startup, 3 months old. No, sorry. I've been there 3 months. The company's about a year old. And we come out of the pay per call insurance background. The parent company is in that space. So that's my main day job. I'm an AI evangelist. I get on stages, I speak, I teach about AI while representing the company, and I also help out with the sales and business development as well.
I love it. And as someone who has you're also in the trenches, like you said, doing high ticket closing for people, right? And as a lifelong learner and someone who's in the trenches, what is the newest insight or the newest, most surprising thing you learned when it comes to sales or marketing or a new update that you had to your to your system as a closer?
Okay, sure. So I would say just in terms of marketing and selling and closing, I learned this. You might have heard this before, but my mentor says that 60% of the sale is based upon the list or the audience. This is the state where it's not you, it's them. It's their situation. 30% of the reason why they buy is because of the offer. And 10% is the words. And I spent years trying to be a better wordsmith, copywriter, thinking that's going to convince people versus, the metaphor is like if a man is with a woman, he gets on one knee and he says, blah, 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 blah. And he's got a ring in his hand. If they're in love, if the list is ready, they're going to, the words didn't matter. The words is not going to make them convert. If the offer is clear, got the ring, and they have that relationship. So the relationship with the list. So that concept has really been helping me to pretty much stop not wasting time. I'm not a super copywriter like you. I don't do a lot, but stop worrying about the words, spend more time, make sure the offer is attractive, irresistible, it's a no-brainer, and then make sure that the list is ready, because so that concept has been the biggest thing for me that is helping me to spend less time worrying about the words, make sure that the audience is ready and the offer is tight. So
very powerful. Yeah, very, very powerful. Focusing on the higher leverage stuff, audience, offer. Then you can, once you get that dialed in, then you can work on the words. But getting those two first is key.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And where can people find more about you or what you're up to, or
Yeah, you go to arvellcraig.com. That's my site. That gives a general. You go /now, arvellcraig.com/now. It'll show what I'm working on now, which
Cool.
it'll have the AI stuff, a little bit of the partnership closing thing, call it commission only closing, which I just do, as is one per month. It's not a major thing, but and then my books that I've written. I don't think of there. I guess you go to Amazon. You can check out. You can find 2 books that I have that are published there as well.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Love it. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on here and sharing all your insight and all your knowledge. And yeah, looking forward to getting to know you more and maybe having you back on in the future.
Awesome. Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Had a really good time.
All right,
Awesome.
man.